Hi everyone, good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you who are here today. Hi everyone, good afternoon. I think we're at like more than 70. So supposedly mga nasa 200 tayo, but I do not know what happened to the rest of your classmates. Mukhang wala yata sila. Okay? By the way, shout out to Zoe and Zaijin Vlogs. Salamat sa panonood mo nitong live natin all the way from Qatar. So if you guys would like to check out itong and support itong YouTube channel ng aking batchmate nung high school, taga Isabela din yan, si Zoe and Zaijin Vlogs. So please subscribe nyo yan. I-send ko mamaya sa GC natin para masuportahan natin. Uy, Noel, dapat magbigay ka ng ng chocolates namin. Okay, so yeah, I think we are good to go. All right, so this is a continuation of our lecture discussion in Assessment and Learning 2. It's been a while since we had this lecture discussion because of the unstable internet connection that I have at home. And as you all know, hindi tayo nakakapasok sa school because we are still on a lockdown because of the COVID cases. Okay? May mga cases tayo. May mga faculty from the different, from a campus in our system na namatay dahil sa COVID. So, I think yun ang dahilan kaya nilockdown muna nila ang entire ISU system. Okay? All right. So, yeah. Again, I'd like to remind you, i-subscribe nyo itong pogi nating kaibigan na si Zoe and Zaijin Vlogs. Magbibigay yan. Dapat magbigay ka ng chocolate namin, Noel, pag umuwi ka. Para iparaffle ko dito sa mga students ko. All right. So, yeah. Enough to that introduction. I think we have to start. So, previously we talked about process-oriented performance-based assessment. So, this time we'll discuss about product-oriented performance-based assessment. So, just like what I mentioned before, we have two different types of performance-based assessment. We have process-oriented, which we already discussed before, and this time, it's product-oriented. So again, just to give you a recap of what process-oriented performance-based assessment is, process-oriented means we assess the processes, okay, or how the students came up with a certain product. So under process-oriented, we are not very much interested with the final product, but we are interested on how did they arrive in that product. Okay, so the opposite of that is product-oriented performance-based assessment. Okay, so this time, the teacher or you, me, are interested in the product, in the final output of the students. Performance-based education, they say should be connected. Okay, there's a movement before telling us that assessment should be something that is relatable to the students, something that they can relate with, something that they can apply what they have learned in real life situations. Okay, because we wanted to find out if the concepts being discussed inside the classroom can be applied by the students in the real world. Hence, we have performance-based assessment. Okay. Examples of performance-based assessment, which is product-oriented, is your, what do you call this one? Let's say when your teacher asked you to come up with a project, for example, Okay, he or she wanted you to, let's say, in cooking, to cook something. Okay, so what will be judged is the final product. Okay, so it's the delicacy, for example, which you bake, or whatever food that you were asked to cook. Then the basis, therefore, the competencies that will be assessed will focus on the product itself. So that's why we call it a product-oriented, performance-based assessment. Okay. By the way, if you guys have questions, or there are things that you would like to add, you can just type in our chat box, and once I see them, I'm going to read them or answer them if those are questions. Now, let's take a look at the learning competencies under the product-oriented performance-based assessment. Okay, students' performances can be defined as targeted tasks that lead to a product or overall learning outcome. Okay, products can include a wide variety or range of students' work that target specific skills. So, for example, communication skills, okay, such as those demonstrated in reading, writing, speaking, listening, or it could also be psychomotor skills, which requires physical abilities to perform a given task. Now, for those of you who are majoring in technical vocational teacher education, or TVTED, most of your performance-based assessment are psychomotor in nature, okay? Where you are asked to perform a given task. Sometimes you are asked to create something through a performance or a demonstration, okay? But of course, when we talk about demonstration, like say in automotive, if you are asked to assemble, let's say, a machine, most of the time they would consider both the process and the product. Okay, is that okay? Yeah, that's okay. You can both evaluate process and the product in a single complex task. Okay. All right. So, another example would be the assessment that are being given to you in um, PE. Okay, your Sir Philip usually would ask you to, of course, in our situation now, where we don't meet face to face, your teachers, for example, in PE would ask you to perform dance steps or perform um, a different, let's say, things that you do in volleyball. Okay, so your teacher would ask you to shoot yourself, to shoot a video of yourself. Okay, not shoot yourself. That's like killing yourself. To shoot a video of yourself demonstrating these uh, stuffs about volleyball, for example, and the teacher would evaluate the video which you have created, and that is an example of a product. Okay. Now, target tasks can also include behavior expectations, targeting complex tasks that students are expected to achieve. Now, um, we make use of rubrics to evaluate or assess student performance or proficiency in any given task, okay, as it relates to the final product or learning outcome. Okay, I think I mentioned about, or we discussed thoroughly about rubrics, and we know that when we talk about performance-based assessments, regardless of what the focus is, whether it's product or process, we have to make use of a rubrics, because rubrics can provide valuable information about the degree to which a student, or which our student, for example, has achieved a defined learning outcome based on specific criteria that define the framework for evaluation. Okay, so if you remember your rubrics, we have level competencies or criteria, then we have the level of performance, And we also have the descriptors. Okay, descriptors are actually worded descriptions of the levels of performance. I hope you still remember that. Now, the learning competencies associated with products or outputs are linked with an assessment of different levels, okay, as manifested in the product. Okay, we have, for example, novice level or beginner, skilled level, or expert level. Okay, in other words, when you're crafting your learning competencies, let's say you were asked to design process product-oriented performance-based assessment task. When you write down your learning competencies, make sure that it measures the different levels. Like we have the beginner level, the skill level, or the expert level. All right. Note, it says here, um, the learning competencies in product-oriented performance-based assessment are evidence-based. So in other words, the teacher needs concrete evidences on the student's achievement based on the submitted product. Okay, as opposed to the traditional method of assessing students, for example, paper and pencil tests. Okay, performance-based assessment, if you remember in our previous lesson, um, it's an assessment that cannot be deceived because the students are rated based on what they're going to show you, what they have accomplished. Unlike in paper and pencil tests, students can cheat. They could copy the answer of the other student, or they can guess. Okay, so in other words, the result of a paper and pencil test is not always a reflection of the amount of learning assimilated by the students. Unlike in the performance-based assessment, which is which is hard to deceive the results. I mean, it reflects on the level of expertise of the students. Okay. Now, example of how learning competencies are defined in 3 levels of expertise. So under novice or beginner, does the final product or project illustrate the minimum expected parts or functions? Okay, so if you will write your learning competencies, you have to specify the minimum expected uh, criteria or criterion in that specific task. Then we have skill level. Does the final product or project contain additional parts and functions and on top of the minimum requirement? Okay. And then we also have the expert level. Does the final product or project contain the basic minimum parts and functions, have additional features on top of the minimum, and is aesthetically pleasing? Itong expert level, ito yung minsan sinasabihan nyo yung estudyante, nung kaklase niyo na, anong tawag dito, masyadong kinarir. Kasi, ang sabi ng teacher, magtimpla ng kape, halimbawa. So, yung iba, nagtimpla lang ng kape. Okay, pinakita yung kape. So, under the skilled level, nagtimpla siya ng kape, tapos maganda yung presentation ng nung kape kasi gumamit siya ng magandang mug at saka yung patungan niya. Okay, so, tapos under expert level, nagtimpla siya ng kape, sinigurado niya na masarap yung lasa ng kape, at naglagay siya ng design doon sa kape mismo. Yung parang nakikita natin sa mga coffee shops. Okay? At maganda yung kanyang presentation. So that's expert level. The teacher did not ask for that, but the students came up with an additional feature on top of the minimum requirement, okay, given by the teacher, and it is aesthetically pleasing. It's good in appearance. Okay, when we say aesthetically pleasing, the appearance is top notch. Okay. All right. So we move on. Examples. So in this example, the desired product, this example will illustrate what the different levels. Okay, when you write your learning competencies under product product oriented performance based assessment. Haba, no? All right, so in this example, the desired product is a representation of a cubic prism made out of cardboard in an elementary geometry course. So in other words, your teacher asked you to uh, produce a cubic prism out of a cardboard in your elementary geometry course. Okay, so the learning competency would be the final product submitted must, number one, possess the correct dimension. Okay, so this is the minimum requirement. It should possess the correct dimension, which is, in our example, 5 by 5 by 5 inches, since we are talking about a prism. So there are 3 dimensions. But that's the minimum specifications, okay, which is under the novice level. And then we have another learning competency. It should be sturdy, made of durable cardboard, and properly fastened together. So this is a skilled specification. Okay, skilled specification. In other words, a skilled student would be able to perform this learning competency well. And then we have the third learning competency, be pleasing to the observer, preferably properly colored for aesthetic purposes. So this is expert specifications. So what I'm trying to say here is, when I will be asking you later to design a process-oriented performance-based task or activity, and you will be writing your learning competencies, this is how you should write them. It should have a minimum specification, a skilled specification, and an expert specification. Okay? So I hope that's clear. All right, another example. For this example, the product desired is a scrapbook illustrating the historical event that led to the EDSA People Power Revolution. Okay? Now, learning competency, the scrapbook presented by the learners must, so under the novice or beginner specification, contain pictures, newspaper clippings, and other illustrations of the key players of the revolution. So ito yung minimum specifications natin. Okay? Then we have the next specification, contained remarks and captions for the illustrations from the learners on the roles played by the key personalities of the revolution. So that is our skilled level or skilled specification. And now moving on to our expert specification. It should be presentable, complete, informative, and pleasing to the reader of the scrapbook. Okay? So there are 3 levels. And si Zoe and Zayjin Vlog, sabi niya, maganda daw yung accent natin and very clear. Oy, magtrabaho ka na dyan. All right, thank you. Anyway, ayan, mamaya ipasubscribe kita sa kanila. All right, another example. This is the third example. This example is a short-term assessment task. Okay, the first 2 examples which I gave you are long-term assessment tasks, meaning it requires a longer period of time to actually accomplish. That is a short-term assessment task. So meaning, for product-oriented performance-based assessment, we can also design a short-term assessment task. So pwede rin. Hindi porke sinabi nating project, dapat palaging mahaba yung time to accomplish that. Mayroon din tayong short-term assessment task. And this is the example. The desired product consists of the output of the learners in a typing class. So this is a typing class. I do not know if you still have a typing class. I think this is embedded in your GE. I think, if I'm not mistaken, for computer. Yeah, I think this one, the typing class, is in your GE computer class. I just don't know the name of the course, but that's more like it, right? Okay, so for the learning competencies, the final typing output of the student must possess no more than 5 errors in spelling. That's our minimum specification or novice specification. And then for our skilled specification, possess no more than 5 errors in spelling while observing proper format based on the document to be typewritten. And then on the expert level, possess no more than 5 errors in spelling, has proper format, and is readable and presentable. Now, why is this short term? Because a typing output can happen in just one sitting, in one meeting in your class. That's why it's called short term. Unlike in the previous example, where you are asked to create a scrapbook illustrating the historical event that led to the EDSA people power, this requires a lot of time. So maybe like a week. So the teacher would tell you that you are given a week to create a scrapbook about illustrating, the historical event that led to EDSA people power. Okay, so that's long term, right? So that is for the learning competencies. I hope you remember, guys, that in designing a task, like what we discussed in the process-oriented, we state the name of the task, and then we have the competencies. From the competencies, you will have your objectives, and then you're going to create a rubric, okay? And under the rubric, the criteria will be taken from the competencies or the objectives. So doon nyo kukunin. Okay? So I hope that's clear and you can still remember that. If you cannot remember that, you go back to our previous video and try to refresh your memories and go back to this video so that you can connect what I am talking about. Okay? All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is to design the task. Task designing for product-based assessment. Okay, now how would you design a task for product-oriented performance-based assessment? Okay, so it all depends on what the teacher desires to observe as outputs of the students. So in other words, the way on how product-based assessment tasks are designed would depend on the output that the teacher desires that the students will produce. Okay, so usually we consider complexity, appeal, creativity, and goals in designing an assessment task that is product-based. Ibig sabihin po, sinasabi ko dito, ano ba yung mga kailangan nating ikonsidera pag tayo ay nagpaplano ng product-based assessment task? Pwede bang kung ano na lang yung gusto ko? Hindi yun pwede. May kailangan tayong minimum na ikonsidera, katulad ng complexity of the task, appeal of the task, the creativity that the students will pour into it, and the goal of the tasks. Okay? So let's discuss them one by one. All right, so we have complexity. The level of complexity of the project needs to be within the range of ability of the students. Okay, we cannot give our students very simple tasks, as it is uninteresting for most of the students, or highly complicated tasks, as it might frustrate the students. Okay, so what then are we going to give them? Something that is within their ability. Okay, it's within the range of their ability. It's something that you know that they can do it. Okay, do not give a task that you yourself as a teacher cannot even accomplish or even have no idea on how are you gonna come up with it. Okay, unless you would like to challenge them, but that would be unfair. I mean, unfair on their part, especially if it's a recorded assessment, because if they are not equipped with the necessary skills and knowledge, and you give them at tasks that is way beyond what you have given them, that would be unfair on their part. But if it's just an enrichment activity or just a way of gauging how far your students can go, then you can go for something that is complicated. Okay, but make sure that if the students were not able to accomplish it, you can show them on how to accomplish the specific task. So in other words, do not give something that you also do not have any idea on how are you going to accomplish it. Okay? So I'm sure, I think marami akong naririnig na reklamo na ganyan na yung may pinagawa siya pero hindi naman related doon sa mga itinuro niya. Tapos sasabihin niya lang na manood na lang kayo ng YouTube videos para magawa ninyo. But still, after watching the YouTube videos, nahihirapan pa rin kayo, and the teacher, if you were not able to accomplish it, would, you know, tell things like, you're not going to pass, or I'm going to mark you 0. Okay? Do you guys have experienced that already? Na-experience nyo na ba yun? Na binigyan kayo ng task na talagang sa tingin ninyo ay napaka-imposible na makumpleto ninyo? Are you still there? Ayun. Oy, ano po ang malabo? Shane, ano yung malabo? Yung video? If the video at your end is not clear, most likely it's because of your internet connection. Okay. Yeah, all right. So, ayun. So, you were able to experience that already. And it's frustrating, right? Nakaka-frustrate yan pag na-experience nyo na yan. And it's really frustrating to be given a task which is really hard. Okay, it's way beyond what you can do. Okay, so that's why it's very important for us, you as future teachers, to gauge, okay, the capability or the abilities of your students para alam nyo kung ano yung task na mag-fit sa kanila. Okay, or you make sure that you equip them with the necessary knowledge and skills to accomplish a certain task. Okay? Now, going back dun sa malabo, like what I said, pag malabo yung broadcast natin at your end, then it's most likely because of your connection. Okay? But don't worry, when you will be watching the replay of this lecture discussion, magiging clear siya as long as maganda yung internet connection ninyo. Okay? So we move on. We have appeal. Okay? The project, activity, or the tasks should be interesting enough so that students are encouraged and motivated to pursue the task to completion, and it should lead to self-discovery of information by the students. Okay, it should be something that will arouse their interests, something that will motivate them to keep going further and further and further in accomplishing the tasks. Okay? Yun, di ba? May mga times na may binigay sa inyo na na tasks, na product-based assessment tasks, na sobrang hindi kayo makapag-antay kasi gusto niyo ng start kasi sobrang na-excite kayo doon sa task na yon. Okay? So yun. So you have to consider the appeal. Ito bang task na ipapagawa ko sa kanila is appealing to them? Okay? Right? So that's a question you have to ask to yourself when designing a product-based assessment or any assessment task, even if it's process assessment, product process-based, performance-based assessment, ay kailangan isipin natin palagi yung appeal. Will this task appeal to my students? Okay, usually, well, it's not related to product, but some of the classroom tasks that is really appealing to students are games. But of course, pag pinag-uusapan natin ang process, hindi pwede yung game format because I mean product. It's not a good task because we are looking into the final output. So if it's a game or a contest, for example, pwede rin. Okay? Pero ang contest is already on the final product. I think I did this in my educational technology class 2 years ago when I handled EdTech 1 for secondary education students. I asked them to design a bulletin board, different bulletin boards. So I told them to adopt a bulletin board all over the campus, and I'm going to judge uh, who is who has or who made the best bulletin board, and there were awards given. Okay, and I gave them a rubric on how their works will be evaluated, and I was so surprised because they have gone beyond my expectations. So you weren't around then yet, so you were not able to see the bulletin boards which they have created. Most of them are interactive bulletin boards. Okay? So kaya yung mga nadadaanan yung mga bulletin boards, naglalaro sila. Kasi may mga games na nilagay dun sa bulletin board na interactive. So, nilalaro ng mga tao, halimbawa sa science, may ginawa sila doon na yung, anong tawag dito, parang kailangan mong ilusot yung parang ring doon sa mga wires. Kapag na-touch mo yung wire, magla-light. So, magla-light yung bulb. So, ibig sabihin, you failed kasi kailangan makarating ka sa end. So, kahit hindi science majors, kahit hindi BSc student, pag napapadaan doon, even teachers, ay nilalaro yon. So, see, that's how interactive. And I did not even tell them to create such. Okay? So, they went beyond what I have told them to do. Okay? And that really was very exciting activity for my students. They were talking, discussing about it all the time whenever I see them. So, it was really an appealing task for the students. And now we move on to the third. The project needs to encourage students to exercise creativity and divergent thinking. So, given the set of materials and project inputs, how does the student best present the project? So it should lead the students into exploring the various possible ways of presenting the final output. So in other words, will this task bring out the creativity of the student? So this is a good example. What I told you is a good example of this creativity. Yung pinagawan ko sila ng bulletin board. So I saw how creative my students when I told them to do the bulletin board. Okay? Kasi wala akong, yung mga basic lang ang binigay ko sa kanila. Ito, I need to see this, I need to see that. But they went beyond it. Okay? And they were also creative. Some of them even painted it, made it appear like it's a three-dimensional paint or painting. And a lot of things going on in the bulletin board, but all of them are essential parts of the bulletin board. Okay? So, ganun yung iisipin natin. All right, and then we have goal-based. Okay? Bear in mind that, or the project is produced in order to attain a learning objective. Thus, projects are assigned to learners not just for the sake of producing something, but for the purpose of reinforcing learning. So, in other words, when you are designing a task, isipin ninyo kung ano ba yung mga learning objectives ninyo. Okay? At yon ang magiging basis ninyo, main consideration ninyo in creating a performance-based assessment that is product-oriented. Okay? So yun pa rin palagi. Kasi sabi natin, dapat aligned sa objectives yung ating mga assessment. So when you design an assessment task, i-align nyo siya doon sa learning objectives. Okay? So palaging ganon. Kaya minsan, this, I don't know if this is happening still, but a long time ago, teachers would require their students to uh, submit Okay, I'm sorry. I think my connection. I lost connection. Okay. So I hope you guys are still there. Nandyan pa ba kayo? Okay, so can you guys say hello if you are still around? I think we have 72 viewers in my screen. It's just too bad because our connection usually gets lost at this time of the day. That's why when I'm playing my mobile games, yeah, I get disconnected most of the time. Okay. All right. So yeah, good to know that you guys are still around. Don't worry because we are about to wrap up our lecture discussion. So I'll make sure that this will end before the 1 hour mark. And we are actually in the last part of our discussion. Okay. Yeah, I can see your hellos. All right, so going back, I do not know if you heard me talking about goal-based, but like what I said earlier, bear in mind that the project is produced in order to attain a learning objectives. In other words, when you are designing your task for product-oriented performance-based assessment, you have to think always of your learning objective. Go back to your learning objectives, and from there, think of what activity should I design to test the following objectives. Okay? So yun yung palaging basis natin. That's why I was asking you earlier, uh, have you ever experienced where you were asked to submit or to buy something and submit, and you were told that that will be your project, like a book maybe, or bundles of bond papers? Ayun, nasubukan nyo na ba yon? O kaya pinabili kayo ng ano ba, mga drawers or kung ano-ano? At sabi, yun daw ang project ninyo. Naranasan nyo na ba yon? I don't know if this is still happening, uh, but yeah, I've heard of it before. Oh, yan. Sabi ni Elmer, na-experience niya daw once back in junior high. Kayo, kailan nyo naman, ano yung pinabili sa inyo, guys? Can you, do not say the name of the school or the teacher. I just wanted to know kung ano yung pinabili sa inyo. Halaman. Dapat sa akin bumili ng halaman kasi madami akong halaman. Sabi ni Unica, halaman daw. How about yung iba? Ayun, medyo late yata itong mga iba at naghe-hello pa lang sila sa akin. Floor wax naman daw kay Janice. Siguro, makintab naman yung floor ninyo sa room nyo before. Baka naman yung bahay nila yung makintab. O yung, ano si Elmer, ang daming hugot ni Elmer, ha? Sabi niya, and worst, sir, yung contributions sa TV na I heard napunta sa business nila. Kanya-kanyang pamamaraan, ano? Itlog ng itik naman daw kay Carmela. Are you serious, Carmela? Pero this is the first time I hear this, na may itlog ng itik. O baka naman fineflex mo na marami kayong itik. Kaya napahingi yung teacher. Guys, iba yung hiningan kayo. Iba naman yung tinatanong ko. Kung sinabi na, okay, magbigay ka ng itlog ng itik at yan na yung project mo. Yun ang tinatanong ko. Ano? Pero kung naglambing yung teacher mo, siguro na, oy, natawa naman ako dito sa itlog ng itik. Pag sinabi sa'yo, hoy, Elmer, penge naman ng itlog ng itik. Kasi madami kayong itik. Pero hindi mo naman grade. Okay? So, naglambing siya. Pwede rin siguro yun. Ano? Walis tingting, nako, yan. Popular yan, ano, na hinihingi. Walis tingting, mga panglinis, mga cleaning materials. Well, this happens in the basic ed before, ano, but I hope na hindi ito ginawang project kasi like what I said when we yung yema daw, pati yema. Hindi naman siguro. Ayun. So anyway, maraming ganon. Now, knowing all these things and well, as students, you experience this and you didn't like it. I hope that when you will be teaching, especially in the public schools, you're not going to do this. Okay, you will not be tempted to do this. Okay, we've been hearing some public schools or a few public schools school teachers na halos lahat daw ng gamit kasi ay binibili nila at galing sa bulsa nila. But even if that is the case, I hope that when you will be teaching, you will not be tempted to do the same. Okay? Kasi kayo mismo noon ay ayaw nyo. So pag kayo ay naging teacher, wag nyo rin gagawin dahil kawawa yung magiging estudyante ninyo. Plus the fact that this cannot be made as projects. Okay? Because projects should be aligned with the learning objective. Okay? And walis tingting, Graham balls, paso, ano pa ba yan? Floor wax, books, halaman, itlog ng itik. These are not aligned to the learning objectives. Therefore, should not be used to grade you. Okay? So, yun. So, hindi pwede yun. May pinaproject pa daw ng halaman. Tapos, nalaman namin, inuwi pala. Baka yung halaman, Janice, ay ano no, ni live selling, ano. You know, it's funny, ano, itong mga pinapakita nyo dito, but this is reality. Okay, it's reality. Well, maybe, sabi ko nga, we cannot judge the teachers, okay? I'm not saying that this is only happening in the public schools. Maybe it's happening everywhere. Okay? But this is now a good way of you remembering all these things that you shouldn't be doing this when you will become teachers. Okay? Huwag niyo sabihin na ginawa naman ito ng teacher ko nung estudyante ako. So maybe it won't hurt if I'm going to do it now that I am a teacher, no? Okay? Do not be the person you hated before. Okay? Kung baka hate na hate mo yung teacher mo dahil ginagawa niya noon yan. And then nung naging teacher ka, ginagawa mo na yun. So it's like hating the person you hated before or being the person that you hated before. That's what I mean. Okay? So naging ganun ka na rin. So do not become like those. Okay? Well, based from what you are telling me now. 95 daw agad yung grade, sabi ni Pauline. Okay, yeah. I know. But of course, I think itong mga sinasabi niyo, yung mga donations, noon kasi yan. Okay? Pero I think nung nagturo ako sa DepEd, bawal kaming humingi sa PTCA, ano, na teachers. I personally, when I had this advisory class, I never told the parents sa PTCA kung ano yung kailangan ng room. So I told them, you ask your children, ask them what they need, and maybe that's the one that you're going to buy for them and not for me. So since mayayaman kasi, yung aking mga hinahandle before, no, makulit sila, no sir, ano yung pwede sa'yo, ganito. So I did not tell them kung ano. Basta sabi ko, just buy whatever you can for your children na magagamit nila dito sa room. So since mga mayayaman kasi yung mga yan, kasi science class yung hawak ko dati, meron pa rin nagregalo, nagbigay ng kurtina, and you know, I'm not a cortina type of teacher, but most teachers love curtains, but I don't like curtains. So, nagbigay sila ng curtains even if I did not ask them. So, sabi nung teacher, "Sir, hindi ito donation na i-declare mo, but I am giving this to you personally." So, binigay niya yun sa akin personally. But yeah, iniwan ko yung curtain when I left that and binigay ko dun sa ibang teacher. Okay? But I did not use that as a leverage doon sa grade nung kanyang anak. Okay? Kasi they know me doon before na kung ano yung kaya ng anak, regardless kung lawyer ba yung nanay niya, teacher ba yung nanay niya, doctor, well-known ba, politician, I don't care. I just give what is due to the student based from the performance of the student. So, ganon. So, kayo, wag nyo nang gagawin yun pag sakaling may na-experience kayo. I'm just asking you this for the sake of, discussion. And of course, to reinforce what I am trying to tell you, that um, products or projects should be based from the learning objectives. Okay? So, yun. So, ano yung learning objectives, doon natin ibabase kung ano yung ibibigay natin na project sa kanila. Okay? Sobrang dami yung hugot pala, no? Ayan. Sobra. So, it's really happening. Okay? I hope, since kayo ay mga magiging modern teachers in the future, you're not going to do this. Kapag may mabalitaan ako, baka mamaya may apo ako na magiging estudyante nyo at malalaman ko na ganun yung ginagawa nyo, I will be very ashamed of myself as your teacher kasi hindi ko kayo naturuan ng tama kung sakaling gagawin yun. So I hope you guys will not do that. All right? So yeah, that's it for product-oriented performance-based assessment. Okay? Do you guys have questions? I hope you learned something today. I know that you are having a hard time with your connection. I'm experiencing that also, but I have no choice. I really need to go online to discuss this to you guys because this is the only way that we can actually elaborate all these topics. Okay? So, do you guys have questions? Or are there things that you would like to add? Yeah, I read all your comments here and I'm just happy that you guys are participating and sharing your experiences. Okay. So if you guys do not have any question, I just wanted to remind the winners of our raffle. I think they were able to receive already the earphones given by Miss Karkar Banaag. Just wait for the Wi-Fi and the USB OTP. Okay, I'm gonna give you all those prices. Okay, so our next topic would be, this is for our next live, assessment in the affective domain. Okay, so this will be our topic next week. And then, yeah, we will have portfolio assessment, the grading system, and one more topic. So I think we can finish this before the end of May. The whole course will be finished before the end of May. Okay. Hello, Joy Vicente. Ayan, medyo late na yung late yata yung pinapanood niya. Okay. Anyways, since there are no more questions, I'd like to thank you all for joining me today. I'm going to make some announcements later in our group chat. So I'm going to take note of your attendance also, because I'm very particular with your attendance. So I hope everyone will join our live discussion next time, because at the moment I only have 102 students. This is supposed to be 200 students. So I don't know what happened to the half of the class. Okay. So that's it for today, guys. Enjoy the rest of the day. Good afternoon to all of you. Goodbye.